Asking for a friend.
That is, I've got to say, it's one of those things where it gets misdiagnosed as insomnia all the time. We see it a lot during pregnancy, and we see it a lot during perimenopause.
Truly asking for a friend. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Shelby Harris. She's a licensed clinical psychologist in private practice in New York City, and she specializes in behavioral sleep medicine and CBT for anxiety and depression. She's also the author of The Women's Guide to Overcoming Insomnia. Get a good night's sleep without relying on medication. Welcome, Shelby.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
So before we get into it, we want to get to know you a little bit more. We've got 3 sentences for you to finish off.
All right.
First and foremost, I love my job because...
When someone has a good night's sleep, I can just see it on their face.
Love that. Okay. Number 2, right now in my life, I'm...
learning to feel more content in myself as I'm moving closer to 50.
My nightstand essentials are...
lip balm, my alarm clock, my sunrise alarm clock, and my glasses because I can't see anything.
My nightstand is very similar.
There.
Sunrise alarm, lip balm, face mask.
That my daughter loves a good face mask.
That's
There
a
you
good
go.
one for sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, so sleep. We all need it, but it seems like hardly anyone's getting enough or at least good quality sleep. Yeah. And we know that the physical and mental exhaustion of life are the #1 symptom that are reported by Flo users in perimenopause. You've heard lots of sleep stories, I'm sure, in your work, but at what point in your life did you become absolutely fascinated by sleep?
So I was really interested in sleep in general when I was a kid. I was a sleepwalker. So I was just like, why am I doing these random things? But then once I went to college and I was debating whether to go to graduate school, I was put on a research study and we were going to rehabs for people who had alcohol addiction. And they found that when we were treating people for their sleep problems, a lot of people would go back to drinking because they weren't sleeping well. So if we tried to actually help them with their sleep, it would reduce relapse rates. And this was almost 25 or more years ago. Why we were only talking about it there, but not in other areas was fascinating to me. So I decided I really wanted to dedicate my career to working on sleep and just bring it more to the masses.
You've touched on something we'll talk a lot about today, but it's the interconnectivity of everything.
100%.
Sleep. Yeah. Tell us a bit more about that. So what happens in our bodies and our brains when we sleep?
So I think a lot of people think that sleep is just this quiet time when nothing is really going on. It couldn't be further from the truth. So throughout the night, we cycle in different sleep cycles, shall I say. So when you go to bed, for someone who's a quote unquote normal amount of sleep, let's say 6 to 9 hours a night, they're cycling about 4 to 7 times throughout different cycles throughout the night. So you start off, you're awake, then you have this kind of in-between sleep. That's this lighter sleep, shall we say, and then you have this middle level sleep, and that's stage 2. That's really for energy. It's for recovery overall, just so we get that like pep in your step a little bit. Then you have deep sleep, and deep sleep is really important for muscle development, for growth. That's when people grow the most, during deep sleep. And then you cycle into REM sleep, and during REM sleep, that's emotion processing, memory. It's really the thing. Sleep at the different stages is what keeps your body going from the ground up.
And from the inside out.
Inside out. So things like cardiovascular health, diabetes risk, cognitively, we see it help. I mean, it's really, a lot of people think about it like a pillar of health. I think of sleep as the bedrock, because if you don't have good sleep overall, quality and quantity, all the other stuff on top of it's not going to work as it needs to be working.
Right. We have to have the solid foundation. You started to talk about this a little bit, but you've talked through the stages. What does a good night's sleep look like?
So I think perfection is not the goal. So I think our society has kind of gone from like, we're not going to talk about sleep, to now like optimizing to the, and a lot of people are left like feeling like, okay, if I have a bad night, is that a problem? No. So really what a good night's sleep is typically where you fall asleep within around a half hour. It doesn't, if you fall asleep immediately, that might actually suggest you're sleep deprived, believe it or not. So take a little time to fall asleep. You might have a few awakenings at night, but they're quick. Usually we don't remember most of the awakenings. And then you feel like about a half hour once you get up in the morning, not right when you get up, you feel like you're well rested and refreshed enough to go about your day. Maybe have a dip after lunch here and there, but in general, you feel like your sleep is kind of the thing that's sustaining you. That's a good night's sleep.
So waking up a tiny bit tired is not a terrible thing, I heard you say.
Right when you get up, yeah. Sleep's not an on-off switch. So I usually tell people, like, give yourself like a half hour. After a half hour, then judge how you're feeling. And if you're feeling good to go, then you're fine.
How come it seems like some people can run on a lot less sleep than others?
Some people can fool themselves thinking that they can sleep, they can go on empty. There's a variety in how much sleep people need. Some people need closer to 7, some need closer to 9. It really does. It just varies where it's not this exact number. It's not 8 like everyone says. But a lot of times people will get a lot less sleep and we're not very good at like kind of seeing the problems that we're having and the impairments. So you might be fooling yourself a lot of the times.
Can anyone and everyone improve sleep issues? Or are there some people who are just bad sleepers?
I like to believe that everyone can improve their sleep. I really genuinely think there's always something that can be modified depending upon what kind of sleep problems you're having. Some might be harder to work on, but there's always things that can be changed. And I think when we label ourselves as bad sleepers, you're going to continue to be a bad sleeper because that's how you view yourself. So it's that moving forward and trying small changes that can really help in the long run.
Yeah, we're all different. We all have different bodies. And so the variables
Totally.
are very different for everyone. What about those with insomnia? Tell us what insomnia is first.
So insomnia is trouble either falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking up earlier than you want to, or a combination of those, which I see all the time. And it has to happen. Here's the key. It has to happen at least 3 nights a week for at least a month to be short term and really 3 months to be considered chronic. So a night here and there of not sleeping perfect is not problematic. It's when it's happening multiple times a week. And what does amount of time mean also? So usually about a half hour. More than a half hour of that trouble is where you start to get into that problematic area.
Okay. In that problematic area where we're asleep, tell us more about what's keeping us awake. Is it our brain or our bodies?
Everything. So for women, we see a lot of the hormonal aspect. So in different stages of life, it's a big problem. Then there's also the brain, right? You can't turn it off. You find that what I hear all the time is like people will say that their volume of their brain is just like on a 12 out of 10 and they can't turn it down.
And I imagine that's really connected to the hormones and the challenges throughout the month.
It can
too.
be. Yeah, I think it's there to begin with for some people, but then when you're starting to have hormonal changes, it can then get ramped up a lot more.
Why can some people sleep like a newborn anywhere with any conditions,
Yeah.
and some of us need blackout blinds and sound machine and all those things to get a good night's sleep?
Yeah, my mom's one of those people that's like anywhere, anytime. So it's a complicated question. So some people are just more sensitive, lighter sleepers, and it is what it is. It's just how your biology is programmed. There's some people who've almost trained themselves to need that perfect environment. I see a lot of times like people say, well, I needed that weighted blanket to be able to sleep. And it's like, have you now trained yourself that you need it? So you kind of have to teach yourself not to have it. And then the flip side is that if you're someone who's falling asleep in any environment very easily, then we also want to make sure that you don't have a sleep disorder, right? Sometimes too much sleep or too deep of a sleep, falling asleep really fast can be suggestive of other issues that are going on. So there's a big spectrum.
I like the way you framed it as trained themselves, because that is kind of the brain, right? That's the part of the brain sleep that we have to work on.
I lived in Manhattan for a while and I had to have a white noise machine there just to kind of drown out some of the subway noise and everything. And then I moved to the suburbs and I was so used to having the white noise that it was so quiet in the suburbs. I needed to have the white noise on at first because it was the only thing that I was so used to that I had to kind of get myself off of that training wise.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's move into some of the kind of perimenopause post 40 questions. There's so many women now who are in their early 40s or 40s who are still in their career.
Yeah.
A lot of them are carers or parents. We're having children a lot later. We're focusing on career a lot more. So we're holding this complexity of life now that it was just not normal even 20 years ago.
There's that perfect storm, right? So there's the biological changes that are happening. There's the cognitive and emotional changes that are happening. And then there's the social stressors, right? So we're I'm sandwich generation. So it's like so much is going on at once. So some fatigue here and there is totally within normal limits, but it's that when you feel like it's getting in the way of you being able to focus, do the things you need to do in your life to get through the day. And fatigue and sleepiness are a little different. Fatigue is that feeling of like, you feel it in your bones. It's just, you're not falling asleep, but you have nothing in your tank. Fatigue can be a symptom of many things too. It can be a symptom of depression, anxiety. So we want to make sure we're not ignoring that. If you really feel, I always tell people like, you're the expert on you. If you feel like there's a big change that's happened when it comes to your energy, or you just can't get through the day without taking naps, you definitely need to bring that up because there is a little bit is within normal limits, but if there's a big change, you need to get that evaluated for sure.
How are sleep patterns changing in our 40s and in this perimenopausal phase?
Yeah. So the thing that we see that happens the most is that you have more awakenings at night. So when it comes to sleep patterns in general, women will start to notice that their sleep gets a little lighter. So they have more awakenings at night, feels a little bit more broken. Early morning awakenings start to happen because you can't turn your brain off a lot of times. We see people especially hot flashes, night sweats. Now, these are all things that can happen, but it doesn't mean that they're not treatable, right? It doesn't mean you have to live with it. But these are the things that we typically see happen. And then we also will see a higher incidence of restless leg syndrome. So I have that myself where you just can't fall asleep because you're just constantly moving. And then we also see more sleep apnea in women. So that fatigue and sleepiness, we see sleep apnea, even if you're thin and fit and even younger, but you're starting to have hormonal changes, that's a big thing that factors in.
Can you tell us more about the sleep apnea? What else causes that? So hormonal changes, you said the weight gain.
There can be a number of things that cause sleep apnea. So it could be weight gain. It could be, we see the rates in men versus women. We see it much more in men when you're younger. But then once women start to hit perimenopause and we start noticing that there's changes in estrogen and progesterone, the airway, it's not even about weight gain really. The airway gets a little looser, which is totally normal. And that's what happens. But once it starts getting looser, we start to have pauses in breathing. And it's not the kind of loud snoring that you think about. It gets missed in women all the time. It's pauses in breathing. You might just feel that fatigue, that sleepiness more. And that's what starts to happen as you get older. And we need to definitely address it because you can address the insomnia all you want if you're up for a long amount of times. But if the quality of the sleep isn't great because you're having pauses in your breathing at night, you're still going to feel really tired the next day.
Tell us more about the link between the perimenopause hormones and sleep.
So what we see happen is it's not about just the drop in perimenopause. It's really about the fluctuation. That's the thing that it's like the roller coaster for women all the time. So when you're having a drop, progesterone is this calming hormone essentially. So it's the thing that really can help people just with their brains quiet down a lot. And then estrogen has that mood kind of regulating a bit more hormone as well. So when we see the kind of roller coaster of it, when we see a drop, especially, that's when we have hot flashes, night sweats. When you see the progesterone change, that's when you might feel a little bit more on edge. And it's those changes that are the things that are actually making us have more disrupted sleep, more broken sleep at night. The brain is going a lot more, and that's where we see the higher rates of insomnia.
That is a really interesting connection. So tell us more about cycle tracking and how you can connect that with sleep.
Yeah, so it's something that we use a lot actually with especially younger women when if you're going through perimenopause, your cycle is going to start changing, and that's all. The tracking can be really helpful with that. But there are some women, a good amount of women, who notice that their sleep is off just before they're getting their period. And it can be one way or the other. A lot of people just assume it's more insomnia. There's a sleep disorder where it's more excessive sleepiness that can happen as well. So some of the women that I'll work with, or many of the women I should say, they're like, oh, it always seems to happen around the same time of the month, but they never put two and two together. So when we start overlapping the sleep symptoms with their cycle, usually about 4 to 5 days before they get their period, they start to notice that that's when their sleep goes off. So then we might have to kind of be proactive, shall I say, before they're going to get their period. When a lot of people will have temperature regulation issues, they'll be hotter. So we'll think about things that we can do to stay ahead of it when they're about to get their period. And then once they get their period, the sleep symptoms tend to abate and they start feeling better again.
That makes total sense for me. I am about to get my period, and last night I wore pajamas that were far too thick.
There you go.
And it was a hot night. But I've noticed that as well, the anxiety, especially at night, and the causing of wakings before the period has a massive effect on my sleep.
Yeah. And I think it's a piece of sleep medicine that wasn't thought of enough for a long time. And I think the more that we're kind of being aware and doing more research in hormonal fluctuations, it really, for some people, it can really line up very, very well so that you don't feel kind of thrown for a loop when it happens. You have some strategies, you know that this will pass. It helps you a little bit more to deal with it.
Yeah, and the cycle tracking kind of unlocks that proactivity so you can get ahead of it.
100% for sure.
That makes sense. While we're on the tracking subject, let's talk about sleep tracking. So we've got lots of wearable technology these days.
Oh, yes.
That are tracking all of our movements all day and all night. We've got a Flo Health sleep score as well. I took a peek at mine before we got started. I only had a fair night's sleep last night. Probably the too hot pajamas. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more of that. How can we track our sleep in a way that's helpful for us so that we can be proactive about these things?
Yeah, sleep tracking, for some people, it's fantastic. For other people, it can go the complete opposite direction. So I'm so old school in how I came up in the field that we were using paper and pen, right, for tracking sleep.
Yeah.
Because it was more about, what did you perceive was happening at night? Did you think you were up for a long time? Did you not? Like, that's kind of what I care about a lot of times when I'm working with patients. But I think the trackers are really great if you're someone who's burning the candle at both ends. You're working, you're doing all these things, you're kind of on your phone a lot at night, you're not going to sleep on time. That's when the trackers are really good because they're giving you insight into, you're not making sleep enough a priority. Or alcohol use, other things that get too much caffeine that are playing in. However, if you're someone who then takes the score and then you're focusing on it the next day and you're letting it almost like kind of guide how your day is going to go, that might actually be problematic. So we find with some people who have really significant insomnia, it actually can make their insomnia worse because they're so focused on their score that they're putting more pressure on themselves to sleep. So just kind of think of, is it adding or is it making you more stressed? If it's making you more stressed, don't do it. If it's adding, then keep doing it.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think there's a way with the cycle tracking and the sleep tracking
Totally.
to make it more intuitive, like you're saying. Like it helps us stay connected to ourselves and our cycles and just pay attention a little bit more. And that could be really helpful.
Yeah, data is great, but you have to know what you're going to do with it
a
little bit. So sometimes too much data is too much data. But I think if you're having insight into things, it's wonderful. So like we were saying earlier, you're not really thrown for a loop. When it does happen, you kind of know when it's going to happen and how you're going to deal with it.
So there's really familiar themes that come up on our secret chats on the Flo Health app. Here's a comment. I'm up at night and asleep during the day, feeling really sluggish and tired. I've been going through perimenopause for about 4 years now. What's going on there? Tell us a little more. Like, so many women are exhausted all day, but still unable to sleep at night.
Well, so if this person is saying that they're fatigued versus sleeping during the day would suggest that there's actually like they have a reversed pattern. But what I hear more often than not is that it's that fatigue and it's really tired but wired. And it's this cruel aspect of insomnia where you just have nothing in your body and sleep is just not coming and your brain is just like going and going and going at night. So you have no energy, but sleep is just not going to come. And that's what we see all the time in insomnia. It's very classic. The thing I hear all the time is that people say, I'm so tired, but I can't nap even when I try. And it's the hormonal changes that are happening during perimenopause that are keeping your mind revved, but your body's just not going to let you go to sleep.
What's your hot take on naps?
Naps are wonderful for most people, believe it or not. So if you're someone who just needs a 20-minute power nap earlier in the day, go ahead. If you find, this is where tracking is helpful. So if you find that you're having trouble sleeping at night, but you're using naps during the day to compensate and it's starting to steal from the night, then I would say get rid of it.
Okay. There's lots of other symptoms in there that are mentioned in our secret chats too. Night sweats is a big one. So what's going on with that and how can we tackle it?
So night sweats are because of, like we were talking about, the fluctuations in the hormonal changes throughout the night. And a lot of times people are waking up before they're actually having a hot flash and then a night sweat first. It's almost like their body is having this sense that something's about to happen and then they wake up and they're having it. And there are a lot of different treatments for it. So whether it can be just initially thinking about basic sleep hygiene, right? So caffeine use, spicy foods, alcohol, making sure you're getting enough consistent sleep apnea. There's a lot of things that can make you have hot flashes and night sweats at night. And then we also start thinking about, if that's not enough, then we think about medication. There's different hormone therapy. There's non-hormonal options nowadays. And then there's the old school things that I've been doing for years with people of just, okay, let's keep your bedroom as cold as possible. Let's have really sweat wicking, cool pajamas. Let's think about the bedding that we can have at night. Do we have to have this, if we have a bed partner, do they have a different internal thermostat? Do we need different sheets, different comforters on the bed? All that sort of stuff plays in. And then I've even had people keep a bucket of ice next to the bed at night with a washcloth on it, and then they put it on the back of their neck when they get hot, and it can really cool you down fast.
Wow, that's a good one. There's a question we have in here about sleeping with bed partners and figuring out how to get around that.
Yes.
There's something circulating around these sleep divorces. So sleeping in a separate space than your partner or whoever you're living with. Can you tell us more about that? Can that be helpful? What do you recommend?
Yes. So in my area of my specialty, we hate the term sleep divorce because it has this connotation that the minute you start sleeping apart, it's like the worst thing ever. When actually the research shows us that it can bring couples together. So it's all about what works for you and your bed partner. So if you both have different internal thermostats, nothing that you try when it comes to bedding, one person makes a lot of noise or moves a lot or is more sensitive at night. That's the stuff that sometimes we just decide, we call it a sleep alliance. So you decide together to sleep apart. And it doesn't have to be forever. It can be one night every few nights. It could be half the week. It doesn't matter. But protecting that sleep where you both can feel better, it lessens the resentment. And we find that it brings some couples together more. But if your goal is to sleep together, then let's try to be as proactive as we can when it comes to the bedding and all the other stuff. It has to be a lot of conversations.
I can see how it can bring us together because there's nothing worse than waking up in the middle of the night and your partner's there snoring away.
Exactly.
And the resentment builds of why can't I sleep through the night?
Totally. So that when you have that idea of the divorce, right? Okay, let's just agree to sleep apart. And then the other thing that I always stress is if it's possible and you decide to have that sleep alliance, let's call it, make sure you're sleeping in somewhat equal environments. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to keep the king size bed and the other person's going to go to the couch. Try to make it so that there's less resentment that you've been relegated somewhere else.
I love that. Okay, let's stay in some of the other symptoms. You mentioned restless leg syndrome.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
So restless leg syndrome, RLS, the name is a bit of a misnomer. So It can happen in the legs. It can also happen in the arms or the trunk. So it's this feeling of restlessness, shall I say, as the night gets closer. So it follows this circadian pattern. As the night gets closer, you feel like you just can't sit still. And everyone describes it different. So I have it myself. I just feel like I'm just constantly stretching. We see it a lot during pregnancy and we see it a lot during perimenopause because of the hormonal changes. It's one of those things where it gets misdiagnosed as insomnia all the time, but sometimes it's as simple as a ferritin lab check and iron supplementation. Sometimes there's medications, avoiding alcohol, caffeine. There are things that can be done, but you want to make sure if you're noticing that happening, bringing it up to your doctor. It can be very easily treated for many people.
Okay, that's good to know. And we also spoke about sleep apnea, but I'm wondering if you could tell us a little more about if that can be worsened by that perimenopausal weight gain that a lot of women experience.
Totally. Yeah, that's where we'll see it worsened, and the severity can be more on the severe spectrum, shall I say. But it doesn't have to be weight related. It can really just be hormonally motivated. Things are loosening. You start having some more pauses and even light snoring sometimes at night.
Another one from our secret chats on the Flo app. For the last year, I've had the most horrendous sleep. I wake up at 3 a.m. every morning and my health anxiety is through the roof. So how can we deal with that double whammy of waking up in the middle of the night and then the anxiety kicking in? Asking for a friend.
That is, I've got to say, that is the most common question that I get. It's always either 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And there's a number of reasons why this is happening. So the first one that I like to try to discuss with people is that it's also normal to wake up at night. Remember how I was talking about when you have sleep cycles, you finish the cycle, you actually wake up. Many people have trained themselves to look at the clock. So when you have a certain number of cycles, usually around 90 minutes, you might then look at the clock when you have the awakening. And so now you're like, why is it always 2 a.m.? It's because that's what's happening naturally. But then it's what is happening in your brain when you do wake up. Do you then say, oh my gosh, here we go again. Why is this happening? And it's that busy brain. And my number one go-to with that is, first of all, when you're having hormonal changes, your brain's just busier. I love doing meditation. People don't talk about mindfulness meditation anywhere near enough, but they talk about doing it at night. And that's great. But actually, the key is to do it during the day. So if you practice, and we have research behind this, mindfulness-based therapy for insomnia, if you spend 5 minutes during the day just doing a basic meditation, it can be with an app, it can just be looking out the window. When your mind wanders, notice it wander, and then just bring it back. That's the key. It's not about focusing the whole time. It's wandering, you're bringing it back. When you do that for 5 minutes every single day, believe it or not, you're strengthening your brain so that when you wake up at 2, 3 in the morning and you start having all the health anxiety and the busy brain, your brain's stronger to say, this isn't serving me, let it go. And you can actually fall asleep a bit faster at night.
Yeah, I've tried that myself.
Yeah.
Having a meditation practice during the day is the building of the muscle.
Exactly.
So that when you wake up in the middle of the night, you know what to do. Your brain knows what to do. You know how practices to walk yourself through.
Exactly.
So helpful.
And I think a lot of times when we're having such a busy brain at night, and I've been there many times myself, the stakes they're so much higher, right? So to try and make your brain quiet, to do all these things when you haven't practiced it during the day, it's so much harder. So practice that mindfulness. It's tough because it doesn't work right away. So I always I say, practice start yesterday. And then in about a month or two, if you have really good, consistent practice, you'll start seeing some gains.
Let's stay on this thread a bit around anxiety.
Yeah.
What role does anxiety play in perimenopause, and how can that affect sleep?
So they kind of fuel each other, right? So when you're not sleeping well, the threshold to be able to tolerate stress, irritability, all that sort of stuff, it's lower. So we find that we have more anxiety that way. And then the anxiety will feed the poor sleep, and it just goes back and forth and back and forth. And then also when we see, like we were talking about, when we see hormonal changes in perimenopause, you start having that busier brain, and it's just harder to turn everything off. And then you have all the other stressors that are going on in life, work, family, everything. It's just harder to be able to kind of juggle everything at once. So they really do feed one another.
What about lifestyle? Things like you mentioned alcohol. We haven't spoken too much about nutrition yet, but exercise. How do they impact our sleep?
There's this idea of sleep hygiene, right? So sleep hygiene, one of my colleagues, Rachel Mamber, she always talks about it like dental hygiene, which I really like the analogy. For dental hygiene, brush, you floss every day to help prevent a cavity from happening. That's good oral health. Sleep hygiene is very similar. So it's limiting alcohol within 3 hours of bed, limiting spicy meals, heavy meals, limiting vigorous exercise, liquids within 3 hours of bed, limiting, let's say, caffeine within 8 to 12 hours of bed. All those things are the kind of good, just basic, they'll keep you regulated when it comes to your sleep. However, when you get, let's say, a cavity, if you get a cavity, you can't just brush the cavity away. You have to then change up what you're doing a bit. You might have to go to the dentist. You might have to get a filling, whatever it is. That's kind of how we think about sleep hygiene. So it's the thing that keeps things kind of going. But then if a sleep disorder like insomnia or something is on top of that, that's when we might need to do extra or additional treatments on top of the sleep hygiene. So sleep hygiene is just kind of the baseline.
I've noticed that has a big improvement on my sleep. I have an almost 3-year-old. So eating that like early toddler dinner and doing dinner at 6 p.m.
Makes a difference.
Massive help. And I also had a really great anecdote from a friend who is a little further along in her perimenopause journey, but she's been trying intermittent fasting in the afternoon. And that has been a massive help for her sleep. The second she started kind of eating not past 4, her sleep improved massively.
It's interesting. There's not one size fits all.
No.
Either. So for some people, intermittent fasting can be a game changer. For other people like myself, I get migraines.
Same.
So if I don't eat, and I can have, like I have my bigger meal more than 3 hours before bed, but I need a little snack before bed. And I usually make it a mix of carb and protein. For me, that helps with the headaches during the night or the next day. So it's a little bit of a variety. You kind of got to do it a little trial and error and see what works for you.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Migraines, gotta eat. What impact can our partners have on our sleep? We talked about this a little bit, but more than just being able to kind of nod off with them. But tell us more about that. When we have duvet hoggers in bed, what should we do?
Okay, so my favorite thing is really just when it comes to the temperature control, get if you can, 2 different duvets, right? Just one for whatever temp you want, one for the other person. You can get like a split king. You can get 2 different mattresses. Then you can have your own bedding completely and get a big duvet, make it look like one big bed at the end. That's great. It's easier to keep the bed or in the bedroom cooler and then put on more layers. So I always try to encourage people to keep it cooler. And then there's lots of wonderful things like mattress toppers. There's all these great personalized mattress pads that will cool down your side of the bed, but not the other person. So there's all different levels that we can do, but you got to really have a conversation with the other person to see what the biggest issues are, light, noise, all those things, and kind of come up with some kind of compromise if possible.
I love the alliance. The sleep alliance is great.
Sleep alliance is key.
I think the question that's on all of our minds that everyone wants to know is, will this last forever? Are we ever going to be able to sleep well again?
Yes. There can be all the firestorm of the hormonal changes, and that can be a piece of it. But if you keep it steady when it comes to the behavioral response, that you're not on your phone scrolling in the middle of the night, you're working on stress management, anxiety, all of those things, hopefully it'll start to settle down a bit. So it's not just the hormones, it's how we're responding to everything else as well.
When is it best to ask a doctor for help? And could sleeping pills be something that's needed?
Yeah. So the way that we were talking about sleep hygiene, so the alcohol, the screen, like limiting screens in the middle of the night, all that, I usually tell people like, do that for about 2 weeks. If that has not made any dent after 2 weeks and you've been really consistent with it, that's when you want to talk with your doctor. And if your doctor is kind of saying, oh, it's normal to not sleep well and all that, find a different doctor. Find one that will listen, because like I said, you are the expert on you. And things like insomnia, things like sleep apnea, restless leg get missed all the time in women. So really advocate for it. Now, the first line treatment for insomnia specifically is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. So that goes beyond sleep hygiene. It's changing the bedtimes, the wake times, working on the thoughts at night that might be keeping you awake, all those kind of strategies. That's what we try to do first, ahead of medication, believe it or not, because it has more of a longer lasting impact. Hormone therapy is another effective option for a lot of people. And then we do sleeping medication, sleep meds have a place for sure. It's just we try not to start with that, because it's rare that I see someone just then only need it for a few days. Then you're really thinking about a longer term, for a lot of people, longer term course.
Yeah. And coming back from that can be a little bit more difficult.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Not a medicine, but melatonin.
Yeah.
What is it? How can we use it? Tell us about that as a possible solution.
So melatonin, we could like to call it the hormone of darkness. So it's this thing that it's a circadian, so your body's natural rhythm. It's the thing that actually sets it. So it's not really a sleeping pill. It's not, I think people use it a lot of times, at least in the United States, they use it a lot of times to try and knock themselves out. That's not how it's not really work. It doesn't work that way. So where it does work is in tiny, tiny doses. I'm talking like 0.5 milligram to 1 milligram. We use little doses many hours before bed to shift your sleep. So it's great for shift work. It's great for jet lag, for people who can sleep a full night but not on the schedule they want. It's not as great for insomnia, traditional insomnia. Melatonin does decrease as you get into perimenopause and menopause. Some people find it's helpful, but more often than not, it's not as effective as a lot of people think. And it can make people feel more sleepy the next day, and nightmares and vivid dreams are really common with it.
That's what happens for me.
Uh-huh.
I feel more sleepy and the dreams are wild.
Yep. So some people swear by it, but a lot of times I see the vivid dreams and the sleepiness. I'm like, well, what's the point of sleep at night if you're going to feel worse during the day? It's not going to do anything.
We've talked a little bit about melatonin.
Yeah.
Tell us about magnesium.
So magnesium is not really a sleep aid specifically. It's really, I always say it's the thing that chills you out a little bit. So it's not going to necessarily make you go right to sleep. But if you find that you're just more tense, it can be useful to quiet the brain, quiet the body. Some people find it helpful. Most people, it's not like the cure for insomnia. But if you want to try it, go ahead. But the thing is, as long as your doctor says it's okay, but the thing is, for some people, it could cause some GI upset. So you just got to kind of be aware of that a little bit. But if you find that it just helps to kind of round out the edge a little bit and quiet your brain, then by all means, give it a try.
One of my nightstand essentials was a magnesium lotion for a little while that I was kind of putting on my feet. It helped me a lot during pregnancy, and I've pulled it back out again.
I use it. I don't use it so much for like insomnia things, but I'm a big runner. So if I have a lot of leg cramps, I will use magnesium lotion, oils, things like that. And it's very useful.
So hormone therapy, when should we consider that a tool in our toolkit?
It's a conversation to have with your doctor. So for some people, it's right away because the symptoms are so significant. For other people, they're like, you know what, I want to see if there's other things I can do. It's a very personal decision for a lot of people. And it's not a one size fits all with what kind of hormone therapy you're doing and where you are in your lifespan. So it's one option, but it's not a cure-all for everyone. So it's really a pros and cons kind of discussion to have with your doctor.
What are some of the biggest myths that we hear about when it comes to perimenopause and sleep?
One of the ones is that you're going to be like this forever. You're never going to sleep again. That's not necessarily true, right? There are things that we can do to help you. Another myth is that you need a lot less sleep as you get older. That's not true. You actually only need a little bit less, but what happens is people tend to nap a little bit more, some people, so that they actually make up. And in 24 hours, it's the same amount of time as you normally would get. And I think the other thing is that it's all a hormonal issue, and it can be, and that can fuel a lot of it, but it's not always. So there are a lot of reasons why people might be struggling with sleep, but it doesn't always have to be hormonal. So it could be sleep apnea, restless leg. It could be things like that, but it could also just be life stressors. There could be so many other things that are going on that it's not always just one thing that's causing it.
Hormone therapy.
Yeah.
Will that help us get a better night's sleep?
It can. It's interesting. We have some research, not a ton when it comes to sleep. It can really help some people, but in a head-to-head kind of comparison, we don't have tons yet on like the cognitive behavioral therapy versus hormone therapy. But CBT it can actually help with the hot flashes. It can help with a lot of the similar things that hormone therapy can. And so it's one option in a whole toolkit of things that we have.
Let's keep going on the CBT route in
Yeah.
relation to anxiety. If it's anxiety that's keeping us awake, what's something we could try?
So meditation's one huge thing. If you're someone who has a lot of worries, one of my favorite things is called worry time. It's spending 20 minutes. If you always notice you're having similar worries, 20 minutes in the afternoon, evening, don't do it right before bed. You take a piece of paper and you write down anything and everything that's on your brain that you're worrying about. Just dump it out. And then sometimes people will write like the next step. What's the next step? It's not a solution, but the next step. Sometimes the next step is there's nothing I can do about it. I need to let it go. So you're writing it down. You're getting it out of your brain. Once the timer goes off for 20 minutes, then you say to yourself, not now during worry time. That's the hardest part. So in the next 23 hours and 40 minutes, anytime that you start worrying about that stuff, you say, not now during worry time. And you're allowing yourself 20 minutes every day to sit and worry the heck out of everything, that you're actually kind of training your brain to be a little bit more consolidated and thoughtful about when it's going to start worrying. It's not to say don't worry is, I think, completely unrealistic, but you have to start reining in a little bit. And worry time is a great strategy for that.
I really like that one. I use something called a mosquito list. Those
Okay.
like mosquitoes that are buzzing
Yeah.
around and bothering you, just write it down, get it out
out.
of the worry.
Yeah.
But the compartmentalizing of that, I really like that worry time.
It only works if you actually allow yourself the 20 minutes to worry about it. If you don't, then your brain's gonna keep saying, think about me, and then it becomes a bigger problem in the long run.
If we are like that person from our secret chats who is exhausted all day but unable to sleep at night, how can we flip that?
So that's when we need to really you got to get some treatment for it. So it's CBT for insomnia, hormone therapy, medication, whatever it might be. But it's got to be, if it's CBT, for example, it's working on the anxiety, the busy brain, the mindfulness. A lot of times people are in bed too many hours. So they're in bed 8-10 hours trying to sleep, when actually the thing that fixes sleep, insomnia especially, is less effort. So it's learning to take the effort out of it and let it happen more naturally. And that's when you can start finding sleep more.
Okay, great. Let's talk about the basic bedroom setup.
Mm-hmm.
You've talked a little bit about sheets and cooling pajamas and comforters. What other setup things can we think about for how our bedroom is kind of organized and set up?
Yeah. Quiet, dark, cool, and comfortable, right? You think about it. We slept in caves thousands of years ago. Cave is quiet, dark, and cool. Not necessarily comfortable, but you want to make it comfortable. So you want to kind of try to have that same environment if you can. And some people like a little bit of light, but honestly, any light can be really disruptive. And the best way to tell if you have any light coming through that could be a problem is to close your eyes and then just do this with your hand in front of your eyes. And if you can see your hand kind of go through your eye with your eyelids closed, then you probably have too much light in your room. So, and then temperature wise in Fahrenheit, we'll do like in the mid to upper 60s. Anyone who says one specific temperature it's not ideal, because humidity levels can change in different parts of the country and the world. So it's really about just something that's cool for you.
Okay, great. What about a perfect wind down routine? And maybe there's nothing that's perfect, but do you have any recommendations for us?
It's so fascinating. People are really interested in like what I do of wind down. I'm like, it's not that interesting. It's really just whatever gives you that buffer between the day and the night. So if you can't even, some people say like 2 hours of wind down. I think that's excessive. Like what person has 2 hours routinely to do that? Whatever.
Not me.
I don't. So start with 5 minutes. If you can't, if you're just like someone who crashes into bed every night, start with 5 minutes, then move it to 10. All it could be is just trying to put your phone down. And it's not necessarily really the blue light that's the issue before bed. It's like, what are you looking at? Put the phone down, read a book. I do some stretching before I go to bed. I read a little bit, I turn off the lights, and I go to sleep. It's nothing too drawn out. Sometimes if you have a wind down that's like perfect when people talk about it that way, but you become a little too rigid with it, that if you don't do it in a certain order, you're afraid that it's going to mess up your sleep at night. So a little flexibility, but moving towards the bed and sleep is the key.
And my two non-negotiables are phone out of the bedroom.
Yep.
And I also stretch. So I have a yoga mat that I put next to my bed, and I unroll it at night. It stays out so that when I wake up in the morning, I stretch a bit in the morning.
There you go.
And then it goes away. And that's just kind of my routine. And it's something, to your point about the rigidness, you can take that anywhere with you, the stretching and the phone out of the bedroom. So it kind of gives you that flexibility to have your life be center stage, but your sleep hygiene still a part.
Yeah. Some people get concerned about travel, things like that, when their routine gets, I was like, we need a little flexibility. It's not supposed to be that if you do these things in this order, you're going to guarantee sleep, because that's problematic too.
Yeah, definitely. Do we need to wave bye-bye to that 6 p.m. glass of wine? You mentioned it.
I mean, Yes, but not, it's consistency, not perfection. So the occasional, if you want to have it, just know that it's going to impact your sleep at night. It very likely will. So yeah, if you want to sleep well at night and not have any dehydration and wake ups, then probably get rid of it.
I've really noticed that as I've gotten closer and
Yeah,
closer to 40. Wine especially. It
same.
has a massive impact on my sleep.
It impacts my sleep. I get more migraines from it.
Mhm.
So I generally don't have it.
Yeah. Another message from our Flo secret chats. Nothing helps. 4 years of blood test, supplement trials, HRT trials, lifestyle changes, new mattress, new bedding, husband in another room, and I still can't sleep for more than 90 minutes at a time without waking, and that's usually in a sweat. That sounds so rough.
It's hard.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about what you're hearing there.
I mean, I wonder if this person has ever had a sleep study. That's kind of the thing that I would go to next. So you can try all the supplements, you try everything else, but a lot of that could be hormonal changes, but it could also be not diagnosing, but it could also be something like sleep apnea that's going on at night. And a lot of times we have home sleep studies that are done. And for women, home sleep studies tend to miss sleep apnea a lot of times. So I wonder if this person is actually seeing someone who's really evaluating the sleep at night.
So on that, what information is helpful to bring to your doctor when you're having trouble sleeping?
Oh, I love this question because people don't always think about it. So first, if you have any time to do it, track it, right? So just track your sleep, how it's been going so that you're not kind of remembering the best and the worst nights. But I always think about quality, quantity, and timing. So are you having issues with the quantity of sleep? So is that an issue for you? The amount of sleep you're getting? Is the quality of it not great? Does it feel like it's unrefreshing? So you can mention that. And then the other thing to think about is the timing of it. So am I able to sleep, but it's not on the kind of clock timing that I want to or need to for my life? So tracking plus those 3 areas can be really useful for your doctor.
So in the Flo app, there's a health report for your doctor. As a sleep specialist, if someone brought you that report, what would you be looking for?
I'm going to look at things like sleep quality, the quantity, how are you feeling? And then we're going to also look at if you do notice that there's some fluctuation with when you're having your period and your cycle, that might be really useful. So some doctors are really going to find that extra information to be really beneficial to then know where they need to go with treatment and evaluation.
So on that, I've been looking at my sleep score on the Flo Health app. I've gotten a fair score for last night. How could I go about improving that?
So similar. So it's thinking about what is it giving you the fare for? Is it the quality, the quantity? But you for that night, you want to just think about, okay, am I getting enough sleep? Am I going to make sure that I'm not using alcohol, caffeine? Do that for a week or two and try to, hopefully that'll bring it up. And if that's not enough, then you want to talk with your doctor.
So if you're a partner to someone who's in perimenopause, what can you do to support them in this season of life, but also specifically their sleep?
I love this question. I'm hearing it more and more, right? People are like, how can I support my partner? Cool. Keep the bedroom cool. Like whatever are the things that they feel like their body needs, try to work with them on that for sure. And don't like, well, you were sleeping more. Like none of the like, what I hear a lot of times people say, oh, I thought I was, or you said you were awake, but I heard you snoring all night. Like none of that, right? Validate their experience. It's very different from the person who's observing. And just really try to, whatever that person needs in that moment physically, for temperature, whatever it is, try to go there with them.
That's really nice advice. So, truly asking for a friend.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke a little bit about how women in their 40s and early perimenopause, a lot of them are parents, and we're becoming parents much later in life and mid-career and all of those things. For someone who's in their 40s and kind of experiencing disrupted sleep because of little ones and little kids, what kind of advice or recommendations do you have for that?
Oh, that's a loaded question, but it's figuring out what you want to do with how you want to work with your kids' sleep and also their age too. But you have to, I think anyone who just ignores the kids' sleep issue and thinks that it's going to get better, you have to do something about it. So however it is that you want to work on it with your doctor, with whatever you want to do, you got to address it though. And consistency is really what's going to be helpful because sleep is not just a one person thing. It's a whole family environment. So you have to think about all the things that your kids are doing. Are they being consistent? Are there stressors going on? The sleep environment, all that sort of stuff. You need to address it, however method you want to do it, so that it can then help you sleep better.
So I'm going to be 40 in September. It's coming up.
Yeah, almost there.
I want to make sure that I'm doing the best that I can and I can really get some quality sleep in my 40s. What do you recommend?
I think it's just keeping things consistent, right? So to put too much effort into it is going to end up backfiring. So it's just keeping a consistent sleep-wake schedule, the sleep hygiene, all that stuff consistent, keeping your room cool. And then if you start noticing that it's getting more off, a little bit off kilter, that's when you might want to talk with your doctor if there's other things. But I think just keeping it consistent and just keeping the basics is what will actually keep problems away.
So this has been a very valuable conversation
I'm
for
glad.
me and for all of our listeners. So thank you so much. Let's round up now with your top tips to get a good night's sleep post 40. What would you say your top 3 tips are?
Okay. Consistency, sleep-wake timing. So same bedtime, roughly, same wake time. Keep your bedroom as cool, quiet, dark, and comfortable as possible. And then finally, if things aren't working with stress management, cool bedroom, all that stuff, talk with your doctor, because we should not just suffer in silence. There's things we can do.
Okay, love that. Okay, final question for
Yep.
you. What female superpower do we develop in our 40s that nobody tells us about?
You're hearing it more and more, but for me, it was that you just care less about what others' opinions. And I think that's helping me become more of who I am and solidifying that more as I'm getting close to 50.
I've heard that quite a lot. It's
Yeah.
the like clarity and the prioritization. and
100%.
you coming back into center. I love it.
Yep.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was such a
Thank
great
you.
conversation.
I
We really appreciate it.
I really loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.